Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at logging in Python. So you might be hearing the word logging and login and what this logging is all about in Python. So in this short course, we're going to go ahead and cover everything related with logging in Python. We're going to go from basics to a very advanced topics in logging and how to log your different applications in Python. So let's move on what logging is in Python. So what's logging in Python and not only just Python, just any programming languages in general. What is logging and how can it be used to better your applications and to be a better programmer? Okay, so let's take an assumption, right? So let's say that you have an API or any application, maybe you deployed somewhere on the server, and then suddenly one night the application crashed, right? So they call you from the office, hey, we have this issue with the application, it crashed, so we need to solve it, right? So one thing you can easily do if you don't have logging included in your application is you go to the whole file, try to debug everything, and that can take hours and hours and probably days to figure out, right? So that thing can take hours and hours to figure out, and once you figure it out, you just go ahead and simply implement the solution that you come up with, right? So that's one way. Okay, now let's look at the way where you have logging in your application. Let's look at the scenario where you have logging in your application. So let's say you're the same programmer and they call you from office or whatever that, hey, the server crashed, the server is down, and we need to go ahead and fix it. So as a programmer, what you can simply do if you have included login instead of your application, what you can simply do, the first step is just going to the log file and see what was the last state of the program, what caused the program to crash. And once you know what was the last state of the program, what caused the program to crash, or have all this tracing information stored, you can easily go ahead. It acts like a map, right? That's like a map leading you to the error, and then from there, or giving you a starting point on how to start debugging your application and finding an error, instead of randomly going through your whole source code and trying to figure out, okay, what probably went wrong. You just having the log gives you the last state of the application, and from there you can trace, go ahead, from there you can trace and debug the application from there and find out what's wrong and how to fix it, right? So it makes your job debugging applications really easy. Not just debugging application. Maybe they ask you, hey, who was the last person to log into the server? Maybe whenever a person logs in into the server, you're able to, like, for example, if an administrator logs into the server or logs into the web application, you have logged that information somewhere. So in case anything happens, you can just go to your log files and then be able to see, okay, the last person who logged into the server was this and this, or the last person who logged into the web application was this person. And then from there, in case you have any issues, you can go ahead and solve it from there. So that's one of the powers of a really powerful method of logging, and one of the really powerful uses of logging in programming. So that's basically just logging in programming. So just giving you a simple example, let's look at the more like definition kind of example of what logging basically is. So logging is a powerful tool to the developers. It gives them an extra eye on the flow of the application or flow of their program. So basically, with logging, you can keep track of the state of the application from one state to another state. So in case the application crashes, you have the last state of the application stored, and then from there you can figure out and debug and then trace things backwards, right? So it's a tool that gives programmers an internal view of the application and how it works, how the flow of the application is internally, basically. So it provides you with the ability to tell the state of your program from point of execution till the line at which an error occurred. Basically, gives you a better way to debug your code. But basically, right? So it gives the ability to trace the execution of your application. From there, you can be able to debug your application, right? This is done through the logging of data and in your program. So you can log different information such as IP addresses, the last person to log into the server, maybe the last transaction that occurred with the database, or anything like that. You can be able to basically log it inside of your application. So once you're able to log all this information, you can use all this information to debug your application in case of a crash or anything happening to the application. You can easily have a starting point to start from, and not just going through your whole code base and spending hours and hours just having crazy headaches and trying to figure out what went wrong, right? So logging gives can give you a clue of what went wrong. So Python, as a modern language, it provides us with logging library that is including the standard libraries in Python. So we don't have to install any third-party libraries to use to add logging functionality to our application. So the logging module integrated with Python also is integrated. Also, third logging application also use the logging module in Python. So for example, there are some libraries that are built specially just to help you with logging, but they also use a logging module in Python. So you can write your own logging functionality and integrate it with third-party logging functionalities, because they all use sometimes the logging module in the background. So right, so that makes it easier to integrate with third-party applications. Right, that's one of the really powerful uses of logging. One of the real powerful advantages of logging. So let's move on to what uses of logging, right? So logging can you be used to store like program data, like the last person logged in, the IP address of the of the last computer to access the server, uh, database transactions and all that information. You can use logging to log you can log all that information and use it to trace the flow of your application, to debug any malicious activities happening in your application and anything like that, right? So let's say you want to keep track of all the APIs or all the IP addresses that access to your server. You can do that using logging. You want to access the last person who was logged into your web application, you can do that. You want to keep track of the last transaction of that occurred in your database, you can use logging for that and all that information, right? So logging is a really powerful tool and you can use it for a variety of functionalities, right? So now in this course, you're going to be looking at the course. Let's take a look at the course outline. So the course outline, you're going to be looking at the severity of the events of logging events. You're going to be looking at basic configurations. You're going to be looking at logging exceptions, logging variables. You're also going to go ahead and look at creating a logger object like using OOP, creating a handler, file configuration methods, and then finally we'll have a conclusion. So this course shouldn't be that long. I will try to keep it under an hour, but if it's more than an hour, we'll see what we can do about it. Okay, it's actually just not bad. Okay. Okay, so let's now look at the severity of events. That's the first thing we're going to be going ahead and looking at. Okay, let's just go here. So I'm just going to go ahead and move into my terminal. So instead of my terminal, I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder. You can call this folder anything you want. I'm just going to go ahead and call mine, let's say mkdraw. I'm just going to go ahead and call my folder. I'm just going to call it logging Python, just like that. And I'm going to change into logging and then simply open up my VS Code. Feel free to use any editor that you're comfortable using. Yeah, you can use Sublime, PyCharm, or anything. So once you have this done, you notice that we didn't install any libraries because we don't need any libraries to run this. Okay, so let me just move this to the other side. Okay, and then make this full screen and then move to the other screen right here. So perfect. So once I have all this set up, great. So what I want to go ahead and do here, I'm just going to go ahead and you have VS Code open up. So let me just go ahead to VS Code, and inside of my VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and simply create a simple file in here. So I'm going to call this file. I'm just going to say, let me just say part one. I want to keep the all the things in different parts so that you guys can refer to it afterwards. Okay, you don't have an issue referring to it. So I also have all this is also saved on GitHub. If you're interested in the source code, just hit me up and I'll share the source code with you. Okay, so to use login, the first thing you have to go ahead and do is importing the login module. So it's a Python library, so you don't have to go ahead and Python standard library. You don't have to go ahead and install any third parties using pip. So once we have that done, I'm just going to go ahead and deal with the. Let's show you how we can deal with severity of severity of a log. Okay, so severity just basically indicates how severe it is. Maybe you can have there are different severity. I think there are I think 4 of them. Yeah, 4 or 5 of them. So there's information, there is a warning, there is error, there is debug, and there is critical. That's 5 of them, right? So there is information severity, there is warning severity, there is error severity, there is debug severity, and then there is the critical severity. So you can use all this to store different information, and you can use the severity to indicate to yourself like how severe a given log information is. Maybe it's so severe that it can cause your application to crash. Then you can maybe it's a critical, maybe it's just a bug. You can log it as a bug, right? So that's the severity. So let's look at how all this works. So you can say info underscore, and just say info underscore log, right? Which is let's just say info underscore log is going to be the following, right? So it's going to say logging let me get that right. So logging dot info, and then I'm going to go here and say this is going to be a info log, just like that. And okay, let me just undo that. So I'm going to have another severity, which is going to be warning underscore log, and it's going to be logging dot warning. So logging dot warning warning, and I'm going to go here and specify the log. So I'm going to say warning log. So warning log, just like that. And once I have that, I'm going to have also an error log. So error underscore log is going to be error underscore log is going to be equals to, we say logging dot logging dot we can simply say this is gonna be error, right? So error, just like that, and we just say error log, just like that. So you don't actually need to store this in an object, but you don't need this to store this in a variable. You can just delete this, right? You don't need that, so you can just go ahead and delete it, by the way. Okay, so once we have that, I also want, there are two more severities. We could say logging dot, this is going to be debug, so debug, and you can say this is going to be a debug log, sorry, debug log, just like that. You're going to have the very last one, you're going to say logging dot this is going to be critical, so critical. You're going to go down here and simply say critical log, so critical log, just like that. So once we have all this logging there, great, we have the everything set as it should be. Yeah, so once we have that, I can just go ahead and run the code. So I can go into my terminal and then simply find where that file is, and then simply say python 3 this is going to be part1.py, and then run it through. You can see we have 3 logs here. So we have warning colon root colon logging info, and then we have error colon root colon log error log. So you can see the information right here is what we specified ourselves, but these other two things right here, the warning and the error, what does it mean? So the warning part is the severity of that error. The right, that is what you mean by severity. So the root part is the root by default, the logger, we call this the logger. So the logger is the root logger by default. Okay, so the root logger, okay, so it's not like the root of your like the root user of your system or anything like that. So it's just called root because it's the root logger, so that's what it's called. So this is a logger, and if you can later on I'll show how you can specify the name of your own logger if you want. So this is the severity, this is the logger, and then this is the message that the logger provides. So this root logger is providing a log message of error, log error, and that's provided by the error severity one. And then we have critical. So you can see we have only 1, 2, and 3. What about the others? Because we have 5, right? So what about information and information and debug? So information and debug actually don't show up, right? So let me just move it here. So from down here, it gets shows by default, so shows up, right? And this one doesn't show up, so it does not show up. So why does one show up and the other one does not show up? So why is it like that? So the reason for this is because by default the severity is starting from warning. The severity must be from warning and above. So from warning and above it gets logged, but from the information and default are not severe enough to be logged, right? So we can change them, you can change this later on and we'll see how to do that, but that's basically it. So if the severity is from warning and above, it's going to get logged, but if it's from info to debug, and it's not going to get logged. So that's basically it. So the severity must be from warning and above, and it's gonna get logged. Other ones else it won't get logged. So that's basically it. Yeah, so that's how we can deal with the severities in the in logging in Python. We'll look at this more in a second because this doesn't look like it's really useful yet, but yes, bear with me, we'll get into this. I'll get into better stuff with this. Okay, so let's move and look at basic configurations. So basic configurations help you to set different configurations of your application to do different stuff. So let's go ahead and see how we can apply configurations to our Python application. So the basic configuration to our logging functionality in Python. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another file here. I'm going to call this one going to be so I'm just this is going to be part. Okay, I keep typing the wrong key, so let me part underscore 02.py pi. This can just get the spelling right, so pi. Okay, so sometimes it's difficult to type because I have the mic right in front of me, so kindly bear with me. So once I have that done, let's go ahead and import logging again because we need to go ahead and import and use it. So we're going to go ahead and import it. So now we're going to look at basic config and how to set your configuration. So to set your configuration with logging, you have to go ahead and use the basic config method. So you have to use this basic config method. Okay, how to figure out the you have to use the basic config method. I've already mentioned that, and it is called once at the point in your application. This function this method rather will be called only once. So let's look at the different uses of it. So let me just keep some comments right here so we know where we are going and where we are coming from, right? So number one, I'm going to be looking at how to formatting the output of the print statement. So if looking at this one right here, and just take you back here, well, the output we got was the output we got was the severity. So we got the severity and then colon and then the user, the logger. So I'm just call it the logger instead. So this will be the logger. and then we have finally the message, right? The message. So these are the three formats of how it counts by default. We have the severity, we have the logger, not cogger, okay, logger, and then finally we have the message. So if you look at it right here, we have the severity, the logger, in this case we have the message, right? And the message is what you're specifying in the strings right here. So this is the format that we have in basically. So how do you go ahead and control this format if you want? So let me just keep it right here. So let me say formatting, formatting the output. Let's call it say formatting the output. Yeah, just like that. So the first thing I want us to do, I'm going to say logging. I don't know why it keeps on importing this. So logging dot I'm going to say basic config, and once we have the basic config, you can simply call it right here. So by default, if I do a login, I'm going to say logging dot let's say error. Let's say error. Yeah, logging dot error. So logging dot error, you can say error message. It's like this. So if you run the application, what do you think the output is going to be like? So let's go ahead and simply try to run the application, and this is going to be 2, right? Not 1, right? And then run that. So you can see we get just the error, we get the severity, the logger, and then the message, right, which is the same as here. So we have done nothing so far, right, because we haven't specified any configurations. So let's see how we can specify configurations to control the format of this. Okay, so one way we can do this is specifying the format. So you can say, go ahead and simply say format. So we say format, format, just like this, and then we can specify the format we want. So the format by now starts with the severity, the name, then the logger, the name of the logger, and then finally the message. So let's tweak this a bit and let's see we can how we can specify our own. So you have to go ahead and simply say I'm going to use this right here, and then say name is going to be of type string type, and then you're going to have we're going to say, so we want to say instead of saying severity colon the logger colon and the message, what I want to go ahead and do is say the name, right, which is basically the logger, space, hyphen, space, and I want to go ahead and say the message. So I want to go ahead and say message. So to say message, I have to go ahead and simply say this, and then say message, just like that, message. Okay, it's going to be of type string, and then hyphen again, and then we go ahead and repeat the same thing again. But this time you're going to go ahead and instead of specifying message, you're going to go ahead and specify the level name. So the level name is going to return to us the severity of it. So it's also going to be of type string. So once we have this specified, which is going to be controlling the format of the application. So let's go ahead and simply run the code, and let's see what we get. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply run the code again. So now we see we get this format instead of the default format we have right here. So we have the error, right, the logger, right, which is specified right here. So we have the name, which is basically the logger, and then we have finally the message. So let's see if we have message. We have the message, which is the error message, and then finally we have the level name, which is the level of severity, and you can see the level of severity is of type error, right, which is here, right. So we can see we change the format of this right here. So the severity now is the last one, the message, right, is the middle one, and then finally we have the logger, name of the logger as the first one right here. So that's how you can control the format of that output. Now you can do a lot more with the formatting. So let's go ahead and see how we can change this even furthermore. Okay. We can do a lot of things. You can also specify the process ID. You can also specify the date if you want. So you can say the process. Let me say process ID. So process ID is going to return to us the ID. Sorry, just a process. The process ID is going to return the process of the application. Which process ID is the application, right? So if you go into your task manager, you can see something like process IDs or something like that. Yeah, and that's how you're going to access here. So if you're running your logger, and you're trying to see what process was running at the time your application cracked. Your application crashed. You can also keep track of the process ID and all that information. So let's run it and let's see what we get. So I'm just going to go back in here and run it. Now you can see the process ID, and if I run it again, the process ID changes from time to time, right? So it's every time you run our program, it's assigned a new process ID. So by that way, you can keep track of what process actually was running at the time of at the time your system your application crashed or something, just like that. So we can also say async time, and this is going to return to us the time or at which maybe you want to keep control of, or want to log at which time your application crashed or something happened in your application. You can also store the time at which that happened, and you can just do it by using the ASC time, and then make sure that it's of type string, right? So now I have to go here and just simply run it again. So now you can see it's going to return to us the time in which the application maybe the error was logged basically, or something was logged on the server. So you can see we have the date here, the time, which is my local time, and all that information, right? And then we have all this other informations as usual. Okay, so let's also take something that we can look at. We can also look at okay, so let me just go back here for a second. So you can see we have this for this date right here. What if you want to control this date format yourself? So you can also go ahead and do that. You can just go ahead and say date format, so just like this, and you can specify the format of the dating that you want. So let's say we want the year, so it to be yeah, just like this, year, and then we have hyphen, and then we want let's say we want hyphen, and let's say we want the, let's say okay, let's just say D, okay, the date, and then let's say B, okay, so B, and then this is just Python formatting. So I'm not going to just explain this. Okay, so I have a video where I did a video explaining how this work, but yeah, but that's basically it. So we get the hour, we get the minute, and then we can also get the second, right? So we can do percentage sign and then capital S, that return to us the second. So now let's run it and let's see what format we get this time around. So I'm going back to my terminal, run it, and then you can see we have it. So we have the right 2020 and all that information, right? So you can see the timing, we have the hour, the minute, the second, and then we have the other message as the follows. And then this at is what I just kept in here. So I just kept at myself right here, right? So you can control the format and then see when your application crashed, on which time or event it crashed. All of that, you can keep track of all that information. So that's basically one way you can control the formatting of your application, right? So let's move in and let's take a deeper look at this. So let's see how you can configure this even furthermore. Okay, so what I want to go ahead and do, let me just go ahead and let me just leave this here for now. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here for now. Okay, let me just delete everything here and let's go ahead and start this from scratch. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here. So let's go ahead and say the format. So we can say the format. Sorry, let me get that right. So format. Okay, the format, and I'm just going to use the doc strings in Python, right? So I'm going to use doc string right here, and I'll explain to you the reason why I'm using doc strings right here. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to say severity, so you can actually print even this information in a better approach, right? So severity, you can say severity, let me use severity level, and you can go ahead and specify the severity level of the log. Okay, so you can say level, this will be level name. Okay, so where do I get all these things of level name, the ASC time, all this process ID and all this? You can get all this is on the Python official documentation. So if I just scroll, I think here I can just go ahead and pull that up. Let me just go ahead in here. Let me just go in here and then see. Okay, see which window to have here. So Windows, and I'm just going ahead and open up this window. So you can see we have all this information right here. So if you want to access all of this, you can go ahead and read about it. If you want me to drop the link in the comment, if you want me to drop the links in the comment section or in the description of the video, I'll go ahead and drop that link. You can read more about the different things you can access. So you can access even the line number at which your code, which an error was logged or something like that. So you can know exactly on which line number an event happened or an error happened or something like that. So let's see how we can use that to our advantage a bit. So let me just go back in here and bring back VS Code. So once I have the severity level, I'm going to say message, message, and the message is going to be let's say message, and I'm going to say the percentage sign. You're going to go ahead and say the message, right, which is going to be of type string. And also one thing I forgot here, I don't need this comma. I just going to specify the type as string. And once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and specify also the time, executed. So then be time executed, and then at which this is going to be the time at which the execution happened, right? So I'm going to go ahead and simply use the ASC time. So ASC time, and it's going to be of type string, right? So yeah, so once I have that, I can go ahead and also specify the log created at, and you can also store that information if you want. There's a lot of things you can do here. So just say created, and then this is gonna be of type floating, right? So so I don't need that actually comma there. So you can also say online number on the line at which the error occurs. So you can just say line number right here, and it's gonna be of type D. Okay, and then you can also specify the process And the process is going to process name. You can also specify the name of the process which was running at the time of the at the time at which something was logged. So maybe at the time at which your server crashed, you can specify the process name. You can say that the name there, and you can say even the thread at which it was running on. You can specify a lot of stuff here. So you can say thread right here. Sorry, it's gonna be so thread. So you can specify even the thread here, and you can just say D, right? Because maybe a number. You can even specify the name of the thread. Sorry, just close this up. So you can even specify the name of the thread. So you can say thread name. Just say thread name, and it's going to be a percentage sign here, and then simply say thread thread name, just like that. So you can even log the name of the thread which was running at that point, maybe a server crash or something like that. So yeah, that's basically it. And I also want the dating format. I deleted the dating format a bit, so let me just go ahead and type that out again, or you can just leave dating format if you want, but you can add it if you are also interested. So once I have this done, I can simply go ahead and run this again. So let me just go into my server, and once I'm in my server, I'm just going to run the application again, so you can see all that information has been stored right here. So I actually don't want these extra spaces right here. So let's go ahead and actually see how we can solve that. So I'm just going to go in here. I want all this, just delete this extra, just untap it right here. Yeah, that's basically what I want. So I don't want any extra spacing right here. You can even keep here, right? Yeah, no extra spacing. And you can say maybe at the end of each you want \n, just to keep a new line. Okay, in case you want to log another thing, there'll be a new line, right? There'll be a space between the different logs. So once I do that, I can run it and save it, and we have it right here. So that's basically it. So you can run different information. You can see the time, the process name was the main process, right? The thread in Python, everything is run by the main thread, so you can see all that information right here. You can see the date at which maybe that log happened, and the severity is going to be of error. The message is going to be the error message, which we just type in ourselves, and all that information can be made available to you by through logging, right? So you can have a whole view of your application. In case it crashes, you know exactly. You can even specify the line at which it happened. So this is going to be line 18, and if you look, we call this sorry, this was previously here and it was on line 18, so that will be on line 18. So if I move it to line 19 and run the program again, that should now return to me line 19, right? So if you can see that here, so at the point at which the log was done, there's a line, that line is going to be stored. So you even have the line number where the log happened or where an error happened in your application. So that's just extremely advantageous to you. You can just go exactly and exactly that line and solve the error, right? So because you know where exactly in your application you are having an issue. So yeah, that's basically it. So let's look at more of this and see how we can even log into a file. So let's see how we can log into a file. So I'm going to go ahead and simply create here path underscore 03.py. So let's create that. So let me just go here and see if I have this. Okay, logging exception. So we haven't reached here yet. So let's look at how to log into a file. So to log into a file is actually very, very simple to this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything from here. Copy everything. Do that. Copy everything and simply go ahead and paste it in my Python 3 path underscore 3 file. So in here, once we have the format specified, we can keep a comma and specify other functionalities. You can say the file name, right? The file name, it is the name of the file that is going to be used to store the log information. So because we want to log all this information into a file. So let's say we have a log, let's say logged underscore info dot log. Okay, you have a file maybe on your system, you have a file called loginfo.log, and if you don't have this file, it's going to go ahead and create it. So you can specify the name of the file right there, and you can specify the name, the mode of the file. Just like in Python, we have the append mode, we have the read mode, we have the read binary mode. But here by default is in append mode, right? It's going to append a new stuff to it every time. So let's go ahead and run the application and let's see what we get. So I'm just going to go in here and simply clear the terminal and run the application again. Oh, sorry, this is going to be 3, right? So part 3, and then simply run the application. So we got no output, right, as we expected to. So once we have it, we go back in here. We can see we have the logged in underscore info.log file, which is the name that is specified right here. So once I open up this file, you can see we have all that log information right here. So that information is saved for us. So it's the error, maybe the error occurred on line 19. It occurred at this time, right? The severity is error and all of that. So if I run this again, let's see what we get. So if I run this 2 more times, let me see what I get 2 more times. So what do you think will be in the file? So now you can see we have all that log information right here. So well, yeah, that's cleanly and neatly done, right? So you can keep track of your application and see which part of your application giving you errors and all that, and how you can go ahead and solve it. So if I change this to be, let's change the severity to be warning, and let's run the code again and let's see what we get. So warning, we run warning. So now if I go back to my file, now I should now see also one for warning. So we have the error and also have the warning severity. Good. So once I have right there, that's right there, I can do a lot of stuff with this. I can also open this in write mode, because maybe I want to only store one. That's like really pathetic to do that, but I don't know. Maybe in some cases you might want to do that, because if you use the write mode, it's going to delete everything and then override it every time. So now if I go back to the log file, now you should see only one severity. And if I go back and run this again, we should now see only one again, because it constantly deletes everything and rewrites the file from scratch again. So that's what the write mode does. So if you want to keep track of every event, then you can use the append mode, which is the default mode. So if you don't specify the file mode in here, so if you delete this, by default, Python is going to use the append mode, right? So because it makes more sense to append new logs as they occur, right? So you can see Python is using now append mode. Yeah, so that's basically it, how you can do storing logging information inside of files in Python. So you have looked at how to log information, how to control the formats, how to get the different information from the logs. Now let's go ahead and see what's up on the next on the list. So next on the list is okay, you have done the basic configuration, right? So good. So now let's move on to logging exceptions. So sometimes your program exceptions might occur. So how do you log in these exceptions in case they occur, right? So that your application, you can keep track of, okay, this exception occurred, how do we solve it? Maybe it's a bug, how do we deal with it, and all of that. So let me just go ahead and create another file in here. This file is going to be called, I'm going to say path_04.py. Okay, so once I have this file created in here, I'm going to go ahead and import login. So I'm going to import again login right there. So once I have login imported, I'm going to go ahead and have the following. So what I want to go ahead and do, I'm going to have a try and except block it with an exception. Let's say 5, right? 5 divided by 0, right? You know, in mathematics you can divide a number by 0, so that should give you an exception. So I want to deal with that exception right here. So exception except, right? We are going to say except. You're going to accept the type of exception that will occur here will be the 0 division error exception, as let's just call it 0 division error exception. Okay, just like that. And once I have that, I can simply go ahead and log this information out. So I can just simply say logging dot let's say that we can do it two ways. You can say log exception, or you can say log error. So if you're familiar with log error, so let's go with log error first, and you're going to simply say log the error. So you can just simply say let's say that division, right? So division by 0, yeah, division by 0 exception. Let me say division by 0 exception, and then just like that. So that's what I want to do. So now let's go ahead and speed run this file and let's see what we get. So once I have this, I'm going to clear the terminal and then run the file again, change this to be 4, and then run the file. So we get back the log information. You see the root, sorry, the error, the severity, the logger is the root logger, which is by default, and then you can see that the message, which is division by 0 exception, and that's the exception which occurred right here. Okay, so what if you want to print out the exception as well with the log information? So you can say exception information, and you can say that to be true. Sorry, this is going to be true, just like that. So once we have that done, I can just go back in here and run the file again. So now you can see it's not only printing it's also printing, going ahead and printing the log information for us. I think we're having an error right here because I'm importing this from, I don't know why it's importing that. So yeah, sorry for that. Let me just go back and run it again. So now you can see you have the logging information right here, and you can see you also printed the trace back, right? The trace back right here. So if you keep exception information out, is gonna equals to true. It's going to go ahead and print out. By default it's false. So if I go ahead and run this again, now if you get back, no trace information, right? So that's how you can control the trace information. And now what you also do, you can say print logging.exception, and that will also work. Okay, so if you do it again, you get the same I'll get the same output. So if you change this to be true again, you get back the same output basically. So if I sorry, go back inside of here, go back in here and run again. So now you can see we have that basically the same functionality. So that's how you can log you can deal with exceptions and be able to log the different exceptions using the logging module in Python. So yeah, that's basically it. So now let's move on and look at what next we have on the list. So I'm just going to go in here and let's see how we can log variables. So we can log variables also in Python. So let's say you want to log a specific variable in Python. Yeah, you can do that as well if you want to. So actually very easy, and let's see how we can log variables in Python. So I'm going to go in here and create another file. I'm going to call this one going to be part underscore 05.py. So in part5.py, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and import logging just like that. So once I have logging imported, I'm going to create an error message. I'm going to create a variable called error underscore message, and error message is going to be here. So I'm say error message just like that. So error message just like that, and I can keep some ellipses if I want to. And once I have that, I can go down here and simply say logging logging dot error. So we're going to do an error, and then you can simply say error message just like that, error underscore message, which is the name of this variable right here. So that's how you can log variables in Python. So just go ahead and simply say go in here and then simply clear the terminal and run that again. So this is going to be part 5, right? So not 4, so part 5, and then run that. You can get back the logging message right there. So that's basically, you can also log basic information. You can also use f strings if you want. Okay, you can just say this is a variable just like that, and then simply wrap this in curly braces, and don't forget to close curly braces, and don't forget to close off that quotes, and then simply go back and run this again. You can see the category, the severity, the logger, and you can see the message. This is a variable, and then the variable name, the variable content, which is error message, right? So that's basically it, how you can log variables in Python. So that was an easy one. So let's go ahead and see how you can creating log objects in Python. So this approach is going to be using an OOP approach. So an OOP stands for object oriented approach. If you don't understand what object oriented programming is, I think you should take a little dive into object oriented programming. But as a normal Python developer, you probably came across object oriented programming. So yeah, I don't think you should have an issue right there. So okay, so let me now go ahead and simply create another file, and this file we can call it part 6, right? Because yeah, we have part 5 already, so we will call this file part 6. So part underscore 06.py. Okay, so that's going to be part 6.py. And in part 6.py, what you're going to going ahead and doing is you're going to be going ahead and dealing with creating an object, right? So creating an object of the log file. So using logging. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and simply say import logging right here. So once I have logging import, I'm going to create a logger. So we can say logging dot get logger. So get logger, enable us to create a logger, and you can give it the name of the logger. So by default, you are seeing the name of the logger was simply root, right? So which was right here. So now we can set the name of the logger. Okay, so we can say, let me say code underscore with underscore print. So you can create different loggers, and each logger can have their own different names. Okay, so okay, say logger logger dot warning, and then simply call let's say warning message by code with prints logger, just like that. So warning message by code with prints logger, and once we run this code, we should get back that information back. So I'm going to go in here, run this. Is going to be part 6, right? And not part 5, so change it to 6 and run it again. You can see the warning message by code with prints. Okay, so you might notice a bit of a difference, right? So we once we created an object, something changes, right? Because by default we are getting the error, right, which is the severity, the logger, right, the name of the logger, and then finally the message. But after creating an object, what you're only getting back is a warning message from a code with print, which is just the message, right? So it's not including the severity and the logger of that message. So how can you configure, how can you change this so that you get we can get that information? You can just use the formatter for this. So let me just see where we use a formatter for this. So I think we use a formatter right here. So what I'm going to go ahead and simply do is copy this right here, copy it, go back into part 6 and paste it right here. So I can go ahead and simply let's say what you want. Let me just delete all of this for now. I don't need this, is a bit complicated, so I'm just deleting all of this. Okay, so what I want to do here, I'm just going to say the name. So I want to say the name, so name, just like that. It's going to be of type string, and you're going to have the other one is going to be the message, right? The message is going to be of type string, and then finally we have the level name, right? So you can also say the level name if you want. So the level underscore. I'm not ordering this in the default format, so level name, but you can go with any formats that you are comfortable working with. Okay, so once I have that specified, let me just go ahead and format this a bit so it looks better. So once we have this done, so I'm just undo that and just keep two spaces right here just to follow the pep conventions. So once I have that done, that should now once we call a log information, now I'm going to move this line. This line should be below it because we want to set the configuration before calling that log information. So once I have that done, that now this should be done. So if I go back in my terminal and then run the code again, now you can see it comes in the format that we specified. The name of the logger, which is an coded prints, and then we have finally the message itself, and then finally the severity, the level name, right? That's what we have right here. The name, the message itself, and then the level name, which is the severity name. So that's basically it of how you can specify that and create an object logger in Python. So great. So once we have all this, one common way you can see for creating logger information names, you see down here, up here we specify the name of the logger, but in Python each application like has its own kind of like name. So you can also do that right here. You can say logger dot get login information. You can see underscore main, just like underscore name. So even if you go ahead and just gonna go ahead and copy this right here and then paste it right here, this is gonna be logger2, right? So change that to be logger2 because we have logger2 right here. And the only difference between this and this is that we are using underscore name, which is just like a danda method, danda, kind of like danda names in Python. Okay, so once we have that done, I can just go ahead and run it again. You can see now each Python application has underscore name, right? So you can see underscore name is giving us an error message of this, and this is severity is 1. Okay, so that's basically it. Okay, so now once you have looked at how to create objects in using the logger object, right? So let's go back and then see what's next on the list. So once we have done that, that's great. So now let's look at how, let's go back and see what's on the list. So we are done with this one. So let's move on this. And this is dealing with using handlers. So handlers are very powerful tools when it comes to logging your applications. Okay. So let's look at how you can use handlers for different things in Python. So let's go ahead and create another file in here. And this file is going to be called part7, right? So part hyphen underscore 7.py. Okay. So once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and import logging just like that. So I have logging imported right here. So once I have logging imported, I'm going to import I'm going to do a couple of things. So handles can be configured using can be configured to send messages to a variety of places. So let's say that you want to have a handler that stores information on locally on your log files. You also want to have one handler which sends you an email in case a certain something error or something needs to be logged that is very critical to your application. That handler can handle that and send you an email to your inbox or send you a message on your phone. You can program it to do anything basically. So that's what a handler can do. So handlers can do different stuff. So handlers can send you emails or in case an error occurred on your server. Can send you any critical alerts, information and stuff like that, or you can just create a handler that's going to just basically write to a simple file, right. So that's basically the handlers, and they can be used for different things, handle different errors, handlers, right? So yeah, so let's go ahead and see how you can go ahead and create a handler. So I'm going to create a logger object, and I'm going to say this is going to be logging dot get. We did this in the last tutorial, right? So I'm going to say underscore name right there. Okay, so once I have it, I'm going to go ahead and simply create this is going to be create the handlers. So handlers just like that, and we're going to go ahead and have two handlers. We're going to have the s handler. So s handler, and this handler what is going to go ahead and is going to handle streaming. Okay, streaming handler. So I'm going to say logging dot streaming streaming handler, just like that. And you're also going to have another handler which is going to be called the f handler, which is going to be writing to a file, right? File handler. So handler just like that, and it's going to be equals to logging dot file handler, just like that. Now in here we need to specify which file name we want to write to. So I'm going to say handler underscore log dot log, just like that. Handler logs, let me just call it handler logs dot log. So this is going to be writing to a file that's going to be created called handler logs handler underscore logs dot logs. Okay, so once we have that done, I'm also going to go ahead and create another thing right here. I'm going to go ahead and create the handler the set the level of the handler. So set the handler, so handler levels, just like that. So I'm going to say s underscore handler dot set set level. So set level, and you can go ahead and simply set the level, and level is just level of severity. Okay, so I'm going to say logging dot this is going to be, let's say, warning. So warning, okay, the word severity is going to be warning. So it's going to handle any warnings that occur. So we're going to have another handler that's going to be handling any error. And this is going to be the file handler. So file underscore handler dot set level, and then simply go ahead and simply say logging logging dot, and then you can go ahead and say the level should be the error. Okay, just like that. So once we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and create another thing right here, and this is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and create the handler formatter. Basically, we can format what we want to get out of our inside of our log, right? So I'm just going to go and say this is going to be create the handler, so handler formatter, just like that. So let me say formatters. Okay, so I'm going to say f underscore formatter. It's going to be formatter. So the f handler formatter is going to be the phone. So we say logging dot formatter, just like that. You can go ahead and specify the format that which we want here. So I'm going to say I want the name, the message, and then the level. So I'm going to say here name of type string, and then I want the message. So message, and then finally this is going to be of type also string, and then finally I also want the level name, the level name, yeah, the level name, just like that. And if you're going to be, it's also going to be of type string, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and simply paste it again, and this is now going to be the f formatter. And we want for the f formatter, I want the name, the message, the level, and I also want the time and the line number. So I want to go ahead and say also sorry, I want the also the line number, which is gonna be ASC time, just like that. And then this is gonna be of time, it's gonna be of type string. And I also want the line number, so it's gonna be line number, and it's gonna be of type decimal number, right? So that's basically it. So I have the formatters already created right there. So these are the formatters, and if I scroll up for you guys to see, you can see that's the formatting we have there. So good. Once I have this done, I'm just going to go down, and I'm going to go ahead and simply set the formatter value. So I'm going to go ahead and say set the formatter some formatters basically. And what I'm going to go here, I'm going to go ahead and simply say s handler, so s handler dot set formatter, and the formatter is going to be the following. So it's going to be s underscore. So in here, you need to go ahead and say the formatting, the formatter that you want to specify. And this one is going to be the s formatter, so s formatter, and then you also specify the f handler. So that's going to be the file handler dot set formatter. The formatter is going to be f underscore formatter, just like that. So we have the formatter set. So now the next thing I want to go ahead and set is the actually you're going to set the handlers to the log. Okay, so now that's what wow, that's what we need to do. So basically add the handlers to the log handler, so the logger. Okay, so add the handlers to the logger. So one logger can consist of multiple handlers, and multiple each handler can be doing different stuff. So that's basically it. So I'm going to simply say logger, let me say add handlers, so handlers to the logger, so just like that. And to do that, I'm going to say logger dot add handler, and I'm going to go ahead and specify the handler here. So it's going to be the s handler, so s handler right here, and we say logger dot add add another, and this add handler, and it's going to be the f handler. So we're going to add the s handler and also the f handler, which is going to be handling the file, okay, the file logs. Okay, so once we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and simply log in simple information. So log some info. Okay, so I'm going to say logger dot this is going to be error. So the the error logs are going to be handled by the s handler, because the s handler sorry, the error logs are going to be handled by the f handler, the file handler, and then the warning logs are going to be handled by the s handler. So I'm going to say that error, and then go ahead and specify, let's say this is an error message, just like that. and then you can also say logger dot warning. It's going to be the warning handler, so warning. And it's going to say just going sorry, I hit the wrong key. Okay, so this is going to be this is the warning handler, so warning handler, just like that. So this is the warning handler. So once I have this done, let's go ahead and simply run the application again. So let's see what we have done so far. So we have simply created the handler. We set the handlers severity levels. Simply went ahead and created the formatters for the handlers, and we simply went ahead and attached those formats to the handlers, and then simply added the handlers to the main logger, and now simply logging some information out. So once I have that done, I can go ahead, and this is going to be part 7, right? So run that. So you can see we have this information. This is the error message, and this is the warning message. So let's go back to our code, and one thing you can notice that we have a file created right here because we're using a file handler, and it's going to handle log into the handler underscore logs dot log file. So this is a file created right here. You can see this is the sum that it logged. So you also log the line at which the logger was called. So if you go scroll here, you can see that logger was called on line 29 because the error the F handler deals with only the error, so only the errors will be logged in here, and the part where an error log was issued was on line 29. That's why in here we're getting on line 29, and you can see this is the date information, and you can see this is an error, and the handler was the main handler. So you can specify the name, sorry, the logger was the main logger. So you can specify different loggers if you want. You can use different loggers. You can have multiple loggers and not just a simple logger, and you can give each logger its own name. Okay, so you can even write the functionality to send emails and other stuff like that if you want to. Yeah, that's basically it, how you can deal with handlers, create handlers. There are a lot of functions we can do with handlers, but this is just the basic stuff you can do with a handler. So if you want to research more about handlers, then you can go back to the official documentation of Python about handlers and read more about it. But this is, for me, what I can tell you, this is just this basic functionality is gonna be enough for you to take you through your logging journey, right? So great. Now let's go back and see what is on the list, on the list next. So we're going to be looking at file configuration method. So right now we are writing the code to do all this, right? You're writing the code to create a handler, a code to create a formatter, then going ahead and setting the loggers, setting the formatters, setting the levels and all of that. So what if you can just create a simple YAML file or simple config file and then have all those instructions in there? So once you can run your code and then pull off all the informations from your log.yaml file or your log file, and then your config file, and then have it do everything for you instead of having to write all the code over and over again. So basically all you have to do is just simply create a simple YAML file and then call that file, and that the Python will go in, read all the file, creates all the every information that you specified in that file, and then simply use it that way. So that's what I want us to do, because it's much easier using a YAML file from my point of view than writing the code yourself all the time. So it's much easier to make changes and do updates to your logging information and all that instead of having to do it manually. Okay, so let me just show you how you can do that in Python. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file. I'm going to call this file, I'm going to call it log.yaml file. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file here. I'm going to call it config.yaml. Okay, just like that. So once I have the YAML file created right here, I'm going to go ahead and say version, and the version is going to be version 1. Great. So once I have the version specified in there, the first thing I want to go ahead and do is specify the formatter. So I'm going to say formatters, just like this, and I'm going to go ahead and specify the formatter. So we have an S formatter, so S formatter, and it's going to have the following. So I'm going to say format, and the format is going to be the following. So it's going to be going to use let's just use single quotes right here because they're more common in YAML files. So I'm going to say name, right? So the name, and then it's going to be of type string, and then you're going to have the level message, the level name, and the level name, and then this is going to be of type string, and then a hyphen. Then you're going to have the message, so message, and it's going to be of type string as well. And then you're going to have the time as well, so just keep the time ASC time, so time, and then be of type string as well. So great. So once we have that formatter created, that's all I want. So we can also create another formatter. It's going to be the F formatter, just like that we did for the code that we typed out. So I'm going to say S formatter, and it's going to have the following. So I'm going to say format, and then it's going to be the following. So I'm going to say it's going to be a name, basically everything in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this part right here. in short, let me just copy everything here and just duplicate it. Basically, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just showing you the point. You can control this and get whatever you want. Maybe also let's say you want the line. Okay, so let's also say the line number, line number, and then it's gonna be of type D. Okay, so once I have all this done, good. So let me just go in here and simply add more information to this. So I have the formatter created. Now I want to create a handler. So I want to create handlers right here. So I want to say handlers. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to the spelling because one spelling issue here can cause your whole thing not to work. So I have a handler, an S handler, and I'm going to give it a class, and the class is going to be logging, logging dot stream handler. So stream handler, just like that. So this is the same thing that we specified in here, right? The stream handler. So now we're going to create another let's go ahead and simply specify more more attributes of this handler. So the level, we can specify the level right here, and the level previously, if you go back in here, the level was for the S handler was a warning. So let's go ahead and say warning. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say warning. Make sure you write all this in caps, right? So warning, and then you are going to go ahead and say the formatter it should use. So the formatter is going to be of type the S underscore formatter, just like that. So okay, you're going to say the stream, and the stream is going to be axt dot and then hyphen hyphen forward slash it's going to be sys system dot std out, like standard out. Okay. Okay, so this is something that you have to provide in here. So just type in as it is, and then we have the file handler. So the file handler, and the file handler, we can specify the class as well. So let me logging dot file handler. So I copy that from previously here. So we see you have file handler right there. Okay, so we have file handler, and then you can also specify the level of this, which level of severity it's going to deal with, and it's going to be dealing with the error, right? The error. That's basically it. Oh no, so I actually made a mistake. This is going to be dealing with warning, and this is actually one is going to be dealing with error. So error. So this is going to be dealing with error, and this is going to be dealing with warning. So this make sure I type in warning right there. So this is going to be dealing with warning. So just type that in, warning, just like that. So we have the error and then the warning. Okay, good. So once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and specify the formatter. So the formatter, and the formatter is going to be equals the f formatter, right? So the f formatter, just like that, the f formatter which is created, and then we're going to specify which file name, because this is a file handler, so it needs to have a file name. So the file name, you're going to simply go ahead and say config underscore logs underscore dot log, just like that. You can give it any name you want, and the mode in which you want to open the file. By default is append mode, so let's just use append mode. Okay, so we don't actually have to specify the mode, because by default it's append mode, but let's just make it more implicit. Okay, explicit or implicit. I don't know the difference between the word implicit and explicit. So if I'm wrong on explicit or implicit, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, so once I have it, I'm going to create a logger right here. So we're going to have a logger, so we're going to call it loggers. We're going to have an S logger, so S logger, and the S logger going to have the following. So it's going to have a level. So the F logger is going to have a level. So we're going to have a level, and the level is just going to be a debug. So we're going to say debug, just like that. So just like that. Once we have that done, and I'm going to also call this one a handler, this other handler, and this is going to be actually it's handlers. Okay, so the handlers are going to be dealing with this logger, and you're going to have only the S underscore handler in here. So it's handler in there. Okay, so once I have this, I can just say propagate, rather propagate. So let me just get propagate, and then propagate is going to be of, just going to say no over there. Okay, so once we have that, I'm just going to say root, and the root, you're going to go ahead and say the level. So the root is going to have a level level right here. So it's going to be level, and the level is just going to be warning. So I'm going to say the warning right here, warning. You don't actually have to specify the level if you don't want to. It also works. So we're going to say handler dot handlers. So sorry, handlers, and the handler is going to be a list of handlers. It's going to have the S handler, S handler. It's also going to have the F handler, handler, just like that. Actually, one thing I remembered, we don't actually need this right here. This will also work without the log information. I think we should work without it, but now let's go ahead and run the code to make sure everything in this YAML file works. So this actually should work. So let's say let's try it out and let's see what it work. So to make this actually work, we need to write a Python application. So I'm going to say path underscore 0 8.py. So in path 8.py, what you're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and simply import a couple of things that we need to use right here. So we need to go ahead and import a couple of things. So we're going to go ahead and import we're going to import logging right here, and we're going to import logging dot config, and you're also going to go ahead and import yaml. So yaml, just like that. So once I have those import, I'm going to open up my file with open, and this is called, I called it config.yaml file. So config.yaml. So I'm going to say config.yaml file, and I'm going to open it in a read mode. So I'm going to open it in a read mode, and I'm going to just open it as f. Okay, I'm going to say config is going to be equals to yaml dot save load, right, dot save load, just save load, and then go ahead and specify the file that you want to. So we say f dot read, just like that, and load that YAML file. So once I have that configuration, we say logging dot config dot dict config, right? You're going to say simply go ahead and simply pass in the config that you have led from the YAML. Okay, once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and simply we can use that logger right here. So I'm going to say create a logger, and logger is going to be equals to logging dot get logger, and you can give it underscore name right there. And once we have that, then we go ahead and simply say logger dot warning right here, and then simply say this change this to be this is a warning message, just like that. So once I have this done, we can simply run the file again, and let's see if everything works as we expect it to. So go into instead of here, and then change this to be 8, and then simply run the file again. So we got an error right here. So we got an okay, we have an error right here. So I think this error occurs in my YAML file. So we probably typed level okay, this here. So this is level. Okay, so once we have this, I hope there are no more errors. So okay, now it works fine. So let me clear this and run it one more time. So you run it one more time, and if you go in here, we should find another file called config this one, because you're having a file logger which is logging into this file. So the file should be created, and it is right here. If I open it, you can see we have all that information in here, because you're having a warning information being called on where is that file? Let's close this up. So we're having, if you go here, we have on line 12, we're having a warning log being called, and it's being stored in, it's being handled by the file handler. So let's actually copy this and paste it here, and let's change this to be error. So error, because the error handle should be handled by the stream handler. So this is going to be error. Get it right. So error. Okay, so once I have that, okay, this should be error right here. So error. So once I have this, let's go ahead and run this again. Run it. We have that information. Now you can see the logger information is logging in the error message, because an error message is occurring right here. Sorry, an error log is occurring right here, so it's handling it. But if you try to comment this out and run it again, we shouldn't get any output this time around, because only the file handler should be working, and the file handler should handle that error. You can see it right here. So the file handler handles actually both the error message and the warning message. So yeah, that's basically it, how you can deal with handling in Python. So if you guys have any questions or any suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. But this is just a simple introduction to logging, and I hope that you apply logging to your different applications, to your servers and other stuff like that, to make sure the application is easy to debug and solve errors and issues and all that information, and keeping track of the different states of your application from time to time, right? So yeah, that's basically it for logging in file. So that's basically it for this tutorial. I use SlideGo to make these presentations, and thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking and sharing this video with anyone who you think might find it helpful. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.